He stood in the corner of an opulent Chicago hotel ballroom, a 10-year-old boy in clothes 2 sizes too small, carrying plates almost heavier than he was. Crystal chandeliers sparkled over hundreds of wealthy guests dressed in gowns and tuxedos, sipping champagne that cost more than some families' monthly rent. The event was a fundraiser for childhood literacy, yet one of the most invisible children in the room was carrying dirty dishes. His shirt hung in faded patches where white had become gray, his shoes pinched with every step, and his rope belt kept oversized pants from falling. Most people looked right past him, until one moment broke his silence and changed his life forever. Daniel Kumar had learned the art of invisibility in just 6 months of living in America. Brought from India after the death of his parents, he had been promised school, safety, and a new beginning by his uncle Raj. Instead, he woke at dawn to cook, clean, and follow his uncle to work where he spent long hours doing odd tasks out of sight. He had not been enrolled in school, had no toys, and owned only a handful of worn clothes. Everything in his life revolved around avoiding mistakes and avoiding attention. His shift in the ballroom wasn't supposed to happen, child labor was strictly prohibited. But with the catering staff short-handed, Raj dressed Daniel in borrowed server clothes and pushed him onto the floor, telling him to just help, stay quiet, and don't be noticed. And Daniel tried, until a boy his age snapped his fingers, pointed to a spilled drink, and said, "Hey, you. Clean that up and bring me another soda." Daniel automatically moved forward, conditioned to obey without question. But something in the boy's tone, something dismissive and entitled, cut through his learned submission. He stopped, looked up, and said quietly, "I'm not a servant." The other boy frowned, confused. "What do you mean? You work here, just get the drink." But Daniel didn't move. "I'm not a servant," he repeated, a little louder this time. "I'm a person." Those words could easily have been lost in the noise of clinking glasses and orchestral music. But nearby, Victoria Chen, a self-made millionaire and venture capitalist, heard him clearly. Victoria had built her fortune through tech startups, but her instincts for spotting problems were shaped long before that, in the restaurant where her immigrant parents worked long hours for little respect. When she looked at Daniel, she recognized something she had seen in other overworked children: exhaustion, fear, and a silent plea for someone to notice. She approached Daniel gently, asking for his name, his age, and why he was wearing torn clothes. He answered each question with hesitant honesty. When she asked if he was supposed to be working, he froze, unable to lie, but afraid to tell the truth. Before he could respond, Raj rushed over, trying to pull the boy away with forced politeness. But Victoria, now fully aware something was deeply wrong, confronted him sharply. Within minutes, hotel management arrived. Within an hour, so did security. Soon after, a social worker was called. One simple question: "Why are you wearing torn clothes?" was all it took to unravel the truth that in a hotel office away from the glittering ballroom. Daniel told his story in pieces. His uncle had brought him to the US legally but never enrolled him in school. Instead, Daniel worked unpaid hours, isolated from other children and taught to fear authorities. Raj insisted this was family helping family, but the signs were unmistakable. Social workers recognized the situation as familial trafficking, a form of exploitation in which children are abused not by strangers, but by relatives who hide behind cultural expectations or promises of care. Throughout the entire investigation, Victoria refused to leave Daniel's side. She offered reassurance when he was overwhelmed and answered questions when he was too frightened to speak. When the social worker explained that Daniel would need emergency placement, Victoria surprised even herself by stepping forward. She volunteered to take him in temporarily, knowing she had the resources, space, and determination to give him safety. She had never fostered a child, yet she knew she could not let him vanish into a system already overloaded with vulnerable children. That first night in Victoria's home was achingly quiet. Daniel stayed awake, fully dressed, his few belongings stuffed in a plastic grocery bag. When she found him sitting on the floor, he asked softly, "Are you going to send me away?" Victoria sat beside him and told him the truth. She didn't know every answer yet, but he was safe for the night. He didn't have to work to earn safety. He didn't have to be invisible. For the first time in months, someone looked him in the eyes and saw him as a child, not labor, not burden, not obligation. The following weeks were filled with delicate adjustments. Daniel flinched when spoken to suddenly, apologized for eating too slowly, and rushed to clean up spills before anyone could react. He struggled to understand that meals were predictable, that he didn't need permission to play, and that his value had nothing to do with how helpful he was. Victoria arranged therapy, tutoring, and medical evaluations. She bought him new clothes and a proper bed. She encouraged him to draw, discovering a talent he had never been allowed to explore. Gradually, Daniel began to reclaim pieces of childhood lost to fear. He started school, nervous at first but quickly flourishing. He made friends, learned English at remarkable speed, and found comfort in routines that didn't revolve around labor. His grandmother in India cried with relief during their first video call. Lawyers fought for Daniel's immigration protections and won him special status as a trafficking victim, granting him legal residency and safety from deportation. Raj faced charges for child labor violations and trafficking. His case exposed systemic weaknesses, how easily a child could be kept out of school, how dependent visas could enable exploitation, and how invisible familial trafficking often is. Victoria didn't let the experience remain a single incident. She launched a foundation dedicated to identifying and preventing child labor within families, an issue few people recognize despite its prevalence. Teachers, social workers, and immigrant families soon partnered with her to raise awareness and offer resources. By the time Daniel turned 12, the transformation was undeniable. He excelled in school, particularly in math and art. His laughter returned, his confidence grew, and he filled sketchbooks with drawings of cities, inventions, and families holding hands. With permission from his grandmother, Victoria began the process to become his foster parent, and eventually, they both hoped, something more permanent. Daniel spoke publicly for the first time at one of Victoria's events. Standing behind a microphone with trembling hands, he said, "I thought no one would ever listen to me. When I said, 'I'm not a servant,' I didn't know anyone would hear. But Ms. Victoria did. Every child deserves someone who listens." The room fell silent, not out of pity, but out of recognition of a truth many had overlooked. His story became a reminder that child trafficking doesn't always look like dramatic kidnappings or distant criminal networks. Often, it hides in kitchens, behind family excuses, in small businesses, or in children who work quietly in the background of everyday life. It hides in plain sight, inside whispers that adults ignore. Daniel was freed because one person chose to ask a simple question. One person chose not to look away. One person chose to listen. How many children are whispering the same truth right now? I'm not a servant, hoping someone hears them, and how many lives could change if we paid attention?